Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Flora Tromelin with me here today. Flora is a native French speaker and is the founder and CEO of Fct Strategies, based here in Phoenix, Arizona. With over 2 decades of experience in management, diplomacy, marketing, communication, international protocol, and project event management, Flora has established herself as an expert in public affairs and communication. Her expertise also extends to supporting local initiatives for nonprofit organizations, where she has nearly a decade of experience. Also, Flora was formerly Chief of Protocol to the U.S. Ambassador to France and Monaco. Passionate about fostering long-term international partnerships, Flora utilizes her spare time to support economic exchanges between France and Arizona in her role as an Arizona board member of the French-American Chamber of Commerce. And on a personal note, today is Veterans Day, and Flora is a proud wife of a retired U.S. Army officer and the mother of a U.S. Army soldier and a French-American high school student. Her life is a testament to her commitment to cross-cultural understanding and international cooperation. Welcome to the show, Flora.
Thank you, Tim, for the great introduction. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. There's a lot I did not talk about there. You've done quite a bit of very interesting stuff. First, let's start with a snapshot of your Fct Strategies company, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I moved to Arizona 4 years ago during the pandemic, interesting time. And I created my company, my own consulting company, which a niche-focused company. Fct Strategies is an LLC, which is the go-to consulting company for any organization looking for an expert in international relations protocol, especially for organizations, for and nonprofits that are looking for a consultant who can support their international events or projects. To give you an idea, I'm just back from Italy, where I worked on a series of projects for an American client. I worked previously for the Consulate of the Netherlands in San Francisco on the visit to Arizona of the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. I've been working on very high-level visits, government, and not only CEOs. That's the kind of I provide the kind of expertise that an organization is looking for when they are launching themselves or trying to expand in a foreign country or with a multicultural organization, and they need an expert who know what are the mistakes to not do to be successful.
Sure. Okay. There's a lot there too. I'm guessing I've been to Italy a number of times. My wife was there last week as well. But I'm thinking this is probably northern Italy, Milan, a little more industrious. Is that right?
I was in Bologna. Yes, but the trip involved some trips to Milan and Firenze, Florence, Rome. So yes, more northern Italy.
Okay. What sort of range of company sizes do you work with on the profit and nonprofit side?
It can be any size, really. I have been working for very small nonprofits who need to organize an international focused event, and they have a tight budget, up to big corporate companies who have to organize an important series of events or are trying to teach cross-cultural communication to their staff, and they need someone who can come train them or can support their commitment abroad for specific projects. So it can be a one-time event in Asia or in the Middle East to a series of events or regular events. I am open to. Don't call me if you need a wedding planner. I'm not a wedding planner. I don't do private events. I'm really focused on international and cross-cultural, multicultural events and projects.
Okay. And what are the challenges with that? I'm sure there's plenty.
There are plenty, because if you don't know, you can do very easy. You can very easily make big mistakes that will cut you from signing a contract, for instance, with a foreign company or a foreign partner. So that's where I can support to prepare for the signature of the contract, accompany the client there, to teach the basics in terms of etiquette and cross-cultural communication. I'm sure you have seen videos already. When you go to Asia, you don't give your business card with just one hand. You have to give with your two hands. There are gestures that are not appropriate. Something that I see here in America very often during talk shows is people who are sat and you can see the bottom of their shoes. And that's something that is absolutely not appropriate in many countries. And that's the kind of small things that can kill a deal if you don't know, and if you don't have someone who can tell you and advise you when you need it.
Right. Yeah. Just those simple little acts of respect or disrespect are very important.
And I think you mentioned that at the beginning. I'm originally from France, and I think everybody picked that up with my accent. But in France, there are tons of things that you cannot do. And Americans are seen as rude in France very often because they don't say hello. They don't spend time socializing enough. In most Latin countries, socialization is very important. Sure. It's part of building trust. While here in America, you do business and then you socialize. In Latin countries, you will sign a contract when the opposite partner knows you and thinks he can trust you. Right. And you go through meals, you go from discussions about family, about friends, about many different things. And sure. Only after that, you talk business.
Sure, which I'm a big fan of, right? Because your relationships are the foundation of a lot of business, and yeah, I've made mistakes, not knowing the person good enough, right? Before you get too deep into a relationship. You mentioned meals. That's something that I enjoy, but I also still struggle with as an American. Some of the meals in Europe are epic. They're like 3 hours, and you ask for the check, and like, yeah, I'll get it to you. Don't worry. And then 1 hour goes by more.
And it's exactly that. It's part of the building trust. It's the same for family meals and luncheons. So the reason why I moved to Arizona is I met, of course, an American guy, and we got married, and he moved me to Arizona. But he himself, in American, going to my family lunches and dinners, he was like, I can't, it's too much, it's too long. Why do we stay at the table for so many hours? But that's how we catch up. We are not on our phones, we are not watching TV, we are talking about the family, about the cousin, about the aunt, about right. What happened in the village or at work or whatever. But we that's how we share times, and we connect as a family or as friends. So these times are very, very important in most of Europe. And in France and Italy in particular, these are really important moments. And yes, you have a lunch break, a true lunch break in France and in Italy, and you need that break, because even as a team, when you go for lunch in France, for instance, during the lunch, you don't talk business, but that's how you build your team. That's how the team gets to know each other's, and that's really important to then foster the team spirit and the teamwork. So it's
trust,
not.
and you're right. The culture is that's got to be another big dance for you, trying to do international cultures.
Yes, because here in America, time is money, right? That's what we say. Well, you have to change your mind and think that, yes, that's 1 hour of time at lunch where you are not going to talk business, but during this hour, you are going to build a super team. And this would have taken maybe months otherwise. So is it worthwhile or not? Is it worth this 1 hour of wasted time, not talking about business? Or
Right.
is it the actual way of doing business by doing this unconscious team building and connections?
Laying the foundation for success later on when things get hard.
Exactly. And so many things can be solved around a lunch or a dinner. So many things can be said and solved.
Yep, sure. So tell us a little bit about working with the U.S. Ambassador office.
So I worked at the U.S. Embassy in Paris for 2 different administrations, Democrat and Republican. So I'm for everybody, okay? And it was super interesting to be in the middle of international relations. Paris is really a hub for international organizations. You have hundreds of foreign embassies there. So my work consisted in, I was the chief of protocol, which many people have no idea what it means.
Tell our listeners, please.
It means I was part of the ambassador's office. I was in charge of her agenda and not the private meetings, right? The official meetings, dinners, receptions, events that I worked for 2 female ambassadors, so I tend to say she, but the ambassador would decide to organize. And contrary to what most people think, these dinners or receptions are not just entertainment. The aim for all these meals or meetings is diplomacy, is to achieve a goal. So when a reception was hosted or a dinner, there was always a goal to foster America, to help the friendship between France and the US in that case, or very often with other countries, because again, Paris is a hub for international community. So usually at a reception, you will have the ambassadors for many different countries there. And so a lot gets to be discussed during these receptions and these events. And it could be political, it could be economical, trade agreements, partnerships that were discussed. Also, health, like during COVID, of course, there were a lot of international exchanges around that. It can be also around cultural exchanges, like museum art exchanges are totally part of diplomacy and a great way to foster friendship. But also, again, very much oriented to support the politics of the US and make sure that the US main ideas are well understood, even if not accepted, at least that they are shared. And the aim is never to force anybody, of course, to like it. The aim of these events is always to share the Americans' way of thinking, to try to explain why we think this way is the best. So it would include commemorations also. I worked on many commemorations, World War I, World War II commemorations, and as today is Veterans Day, it was the kind of event that were dear to me to help organize. But also dinners with CEOs to bring more companies in the US, foreign companies in the US, or support American companies that want to expand in Europe. So this is the kind of work that are done by the embassies and the foreign diplomacy people. So it's not just glamorous receptions. Behind every glamorous dinner and reception, you have a lot of work going on.
Oh, for sure. And those things, at a superficial level, I'm sure a lot of people think that they're just the party part of the job, when really they're a big foundational part of understanding each other. You mentioned,
And again, the food comes into play because we would host, but then we were hosted also by other embassies, and they also share their culture and what they like to eat and drink and why and what's the history behind. So
Right.
it's a word that I really loved, the diplomatic word, and that I really commend for the work they do. I'm always sad when I hear comments about what are these diplomats doing or whatever. Believe me, it's hard work. It's hard work and not a lot of sleep very often.
Can you well, first of all, you mentioned Veterans Day again. It's prudent again today to discuss it. So can you give me a little bit of background on, because it was Armistice Day, right after World War I, it was
November 11, 1918. Yes.
But it wasn't Armistice Day then. It was after World War II. They called it Armistice. No, it was Armistice Day in
Armistice for World War II is in May, but November 11th was the Armistice for World War I.
Yes.
And actually something I didn't mention, but my first job working for the US federal government was working for the American Battle Monuments Commission, which is a federal agency in charge of maintaining the World War I and World War II American cemeteries abroad. So I used to work in a cemetery, so it's not very glamorous when you say that, but I used to work in a World War I American cemetery in France. And so I met with many veterans and active duty soldiers and officers. And one of my big jobs then was to organize the big Memorial Day celebration there in France with 5,000 people in attendance. And the ambassador would come, and generals from France, from Germany, from the US, from various countries would attend, and senators. And so it was another part of my past life. But being a French person, when you meet with Americans, not necessarily in Paris is different, but if you go outside, visit the French countryside, you will see that many French people are deeply in deep gratitude for the Americans and the liberation of France, World War II, and all the support from America. And so to work then at the embassy on commemorations and supporting these commemoration events was really special. When I moved here, I was trying to find a community that was alike, alike to me, and that's how I met with the executive director of a nonprofit. They just changed their name. Their new name is Imprints of Honor. It used to be named until recently Veterans Heritage Project. This is my 4th year on their board. And I wanted to take this opportunity to call for the people listening to this podcast to consider looking at their website. So Imprints of Honor, they are located here in Phoenix. They are an after-school program. The high school students interview the veterans of any war and record their stories. The students learn how to proceed with an interview and to do all the editing process and picture selection. And for the veteran, it's really very often a healing process to talk about what they went through. And all these stories are printed in books. There are several books every year that are printed by the organization. And a copy of each book is sent to the Library of Congress in DC for perpetual keeping. So that's also part of keeping our oral history alive. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about this nonprofit. So Imprints of Honor, and the American guy I talked about who I married was in the army, actually in the US Army when I met him. And so he's now retired from the army. He's a veteran. And so happy Veterans Day to my husband, Aaron, and to all veterans who are listening to us. and their spouses, because it's not an easy job.
No, it's not. It's and yeah, my kids were marching in the Veterans Day parade again this year. Always a very special occasion. You mentioned I've been through the French countryside a few times, and even last year I was up at the memorials up in Normandy and stuff. It was all very impressive, very well done, very somber and interesting stuff. They're just very. I've always been impressed anyway, and well received. To your point, right? As an American,
Yes.
that everywhere we've been, which has been
always, yes.
So talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about how you're bringing in arriving at Arizona, how that's going. Your role on the board for the Chamber of Commerce, the French American Chamber of Commerce.
So thank you for asking this question. So I left my position at the U.S. Embassy in Paris during the pandemic to follow my husband, who was retiring. So he could not stay in France anymore. And for me, it was heartbreaking to quit my position, very honestly, because I really loved what I was doing at the embassy. And I knew so many people in Paris. I had a huge network. So to move to Arizona and starting from scratch, I knew literally 0 people in Arizona when I arrived in the pandemic. So nobody wanted to meet you, especially if they had never heard of you before. So I started to look around and say, okay, I don't have a network anymore, so I have to solve the problem. My problem is I don't know anybody. So I have to create my own network. So I looked around and I realized there was no network, no professional network for French-speaking professionals in Arizona. And there are some French speakers in Arizona. And speaking French can be really an asset for many companies. And they can be hard to find. So I decided to create a new group on LinkedIn, a page called the French-Speaking Professional Group on LinkedIn. I started with only 1 member myself, and I grew it. Every time I was meeting with someone, I had the little card with the QR code leading to the page. And I was organizing 1 event per month. And from 1 person, I grew it to 250. And we started on seeing outcomes, like people were partnering together, doing business together. But, it was sweet, it was nice, but then what's next? You have to go to the next level to get the organization recognized by the local authorities and do other things. And right at that time, I was contacted by the president of the French American Chamber of Commerce of Rocky Mountain. They are headquartered in Denver, Colorado. And it turns out that in their status, they cover 5 states. So Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Arizona. And they had no one in Arizona. The president, Victor Ducoulombier, yes, exactly, heard about me and contacted me and asked me if I would consider to integrate my network to move it to the chamber, which I accepted. So I'm officially on the board of directors of the French American Chamber of Commerce. This is an unpaid position. I launched an advisory committee for Arizona right after just when I started the chapter last year. So we have an Arizona advisory committee. And since February, I have 2 other board members who joined me from Arizona. So we are 3 board members now in Arizona. So we are a growing team. We are like a startup with more and more members, and the number of members is growing. And again, with great outcome. I'm sure you heard that now we have a direct flight Phoenix to Paris. And this is amazing for economic exchange, to bring tourism, to facilitate trade. We really, really needed this flight. But that is really bringing a lot of opportunities for Arizona. So we are very happy about it. And we organize events every month. everybody is welcome to join us. It's not for French speakers only. Actually, our events are usually in English. We have members who are Americans who are interested in doing business with French speakers, French-speaking companies. And our next event will be on November 22nd in Tucson. We will go in Tucson to meet with the Economic Development Office of the city, Pima County Economic Development Council, visit Tucson, the University of Arizona, of course, and this is organized with my friends at Arizona Commerce Authority and the City of Tucson Economic Development Office. The Alliance Française of Tucson is organizing a Great Beaujolais Nouveau event that evening. So you are all invited to come. You just contact me for details. And again, we are open. We are willing to meet with everybody, support each other's. The aim of the Chamber of Commerce is really to support our members and to make sure they grow. And that's how I started 4 years ago.
Okay.
So from a little LinkedIn page and from the lack of network, now there's the French-American Chamber of Commerce in Arizona. Nice.
And it all started, I guess, when your husband decided to come back to Arizona, and he had a big impact on Phoenix by bringing you here.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that, because I'm the extrovert in our couple and he's the introvert. He should totally take credit for it. Next time I will say everything is thanks to my husband.
So you mentioned a few things, but is there anything specific or special coming up in the next 12 months, or any initiatives or programs you want to, or events you'd like to promote or just?
Yeah, so the French-American Chamber of Commerce, I already mentioned, join us. We will have a holiday dinner in December also. That will be very nice with at a French restaurant, of course, with very, very, very nice meal that will last more than 30 minutes.
I'm sure.
So Tim, you should come definitively. And the Imprints of Honor, the other nonprofit I talked about, we have our annual fundraising gala in March, on March 8th, if I'm not mistaken, this year. We are looking for supporters also for our after-school program. And of course, I'm open to new partnerships for my company. So if you have a company, an organization that is looking to organize an event outside of the US, or who is looking to organize an event with a multicultural focus, either in Arizona or elsewhere, please contact me. I'm also there to support you for your strategic planning and international focus projects. So reach out to me. You can find my website very easily, Fct Strategies LLC, here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, excellent. And can you also remind me the veterans contact info for that program where the kids get to talk?
Imprints of Honor.
Okay.
Formerly Veterans Heritage Project, Imprints of Honor. They are here in Phoenix also. They're in the Valley. And please reach out to me via LinkedIn. Shoot me a message. I'm the only Flora Tromelin on LinkedIn, and there's no other. I'm unique, and my last name is not common at all. So if you tap my name in LinkedIn, you will find me very easily. Send me a message saying I saw you on the podcast with Tim. I'd like to talk to you, and I will be more than happy to meet you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Flora. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for watching. Thank you again, Flora Tromelin, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and your family and your insights into international success and impact here in Phoenix. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.